You can go.
Hi, my name's Hannah, and I'm reading Hot Fudge by James Howe. Friday nights are special at our house. Toby gets to stay up and read as late as he wants, and he lets me lie on his bed with him and share his chocolate treats. Toby and I love chocolate. I lick his fingers all over so we won't get sticky brown smudges on the pages of his books. They frown on sticky brown fudges at the library. Sticky brown smudges at the library. When Toby gets tired, he brushes his teeth, turns out the light, and says, "Good night, Harold, sweet dreams." And then we fall asleep, full of good stories and good chocolate. One Friday night, Toby whispered in the dark, Wait until tomorrow, Harold. Yum, yum. Just wait." If I didn't love sleeping almost as much as eating, I would never have slept that night. Yum, yum. Just wait. What did that mean? When I woke up the next morning, my nose figured out the answer before my brain even remembered the question. Fudge! Mr. Monroe was making his famous homemade fudge. "Chester," I cried as I skidded across the kitchen floor. Chester looked up calmly from his food dish. How can you eat that stuff when there's fudge in the air?" I asked. "Because," said Chester, "the fudge is in the air and not in my bowl, and I'm hungry." He had a point. After wolfing down my breakfast, I joined Howie to beg at Mr. Monroe's side. "Have you no shame?" Chester asked. He says that sort of thing whenever Howie and I beg and whimper. "We're dogs," I told him. "Begging is one of the things we do best. Besides, don't tell me there's anything more dignified about rubbing up against people's legs and leaving little hairs all over their pants." Chester stuck his nose in the air and walked away. I turned my attention back to more important things. "Nice try, fellas," Mr. Monroe said as we whimpered, "but this fudge isn't for you." "Not for us," but Toby said. Just then, the kitchen door flew open and the rest of the Monroe family rushed in. "That fudge sure smells good," Toby cried. "Can I lick the spoon?" "After breakfast," said Mrs. Monroe, "if there's time. I just discovered that the station wagon has a flat tire. We'll have to use one car." "But I've got to get to practice now," Pete whined. "Dear," Mrs. Monroe said to her husband, "I'll drop you and Toby off first. Then Pete and I will go to the field, all right?" Mr. Monroe was Pete's weekend soccer coach. Fine, said Mr. Monroe. "I just need a little more time for the second batch of fudge to cool." "But, Mom," Pete whined again. 10 more minutes?" Mrs. Monroe asked. Mr. Monroe nodded. 10 minutes, said Mrs. Monroe. Everybody started running in and out of the kitchen and up and down the stairs, shouting and banging things and slamming doors. It was a typical Saturday morning. And then, "Goodbye, Harold. Goodbye, Chester. Good night, Howie. Good night, Goodbye, Benicula." The door stopped banging, the house grew quiet, and Howie and I suddenly found ourselves alone in the kitchen. Alone with a plate of fudge. "This isn't fair, Uncle Harold," Howie complained. "Do you think they're testing us?" "Oh, that smell. It was enough to make your taste buds weep." "Yes," I said, "and we're about to flunk. Let's get out of here." Chester had wandered off into the living room, where we found him reading the newspaper in his favorite chair. "Anything interesting in the fudge?" I asked. I meant to say paper. "Harold," Chester said, "you have chocolate on the brain. You can't spend the day like this." "I have an idea," said Howie. "Let's play a game. How about rip the rag, or bury the bone?" "Yipes," Chester explained. "I don't know that one," I said. "How do you play?" "It isn't a game," Chester said. "I just read in the paper that there have been a number of robberies recently during the day. In this neighborhood." "We're going to have to guard the house, Harold. That's what pets are for." I know. You're going to say pets are for loving and snuggling and rolling around with on the floor. But let's face it, we really need just a cheap burglary system. "I'd rather snuggle," I muttered as Howie began to yip. But I knew it was useless to argue with Chester. Once he had his mind made up about something, that's the end of it. So Howie guarded the front door, and Chester surveyed the neighborhood from the window at the top of the stairs. And I positioned myself in the kitchen door, near the fudge. Now, I don't know how long it's been since you've protected your house against robbers, but if it's been a while, let you remind me that it isn't all it's cracked up to be. The truth is that it gets boring. Fast. It wasn't long before I fell asleep. I was having the most wonderful dream when a loud bang woke me. "Chester!" I cried. Chester raced into the kitchen. I heard it, he said. Howie straggled in. Heard what? He asked with a yawn. I couldn't help myself. I yawned too. Don't tell me you two have been sleeping, Chester said. Okay, we won't tell you, said Howie. Chester shook his head. They should call them dog naps, not cat naps, he said. Don't you realize what's happening? There's been a robbery. Look, the pan of fudge is missing from the counter. Missing, I said. Stolen, said Chester. Stolen, Howie cried in amazement. You mean it's hot fudge? The thief can't be far away, Chester said. Come on, you two, put those doggy sniffers to use. We were almost out of the pet door when I looked up and spotted a pan sitting on the windowsill. Wait, I said, the fudge hasn't been stolen, it's just been moved. Who would move it? Chester asked. He gave me a funny look. Harold, he said, shame on you. I didn't touch it, I was dreaming about it, I admit, but you can reach it, Uncle Harold, said Howie. See if it's been touched. I put my front paws on the sill, raised myself up to my full height, and peered over the top of the pan. I could hardly believe my eyes. It's turned white, I said. White? Chester gasped. Well, I guess we know who the culprit is, don't we? And he dashed through the door into the living room. Howie and I followed after him. Benicula was sleeping soundly in his cage. Don't be fooled, Chester whispered. He's pretending to be asleep. Chester believes that our little bunny is a vampire. Up until now, Benicula had only sucked the juices out of vegetables, turning them white. But as Chester pointed out, there was no reason he might not turn fudge white as well. Maybe he has a sweet fang, he suggested. What's wrong with that? Howie said. At least the fudge wasn't stolen. But what about that bang we heard? I asked. Before anyone could answer, another loud bang sounded from the kitchen. This time the fudge was gone. Really gone. The three of us pushed and shoved our way out the pet door. No sooner were we outside than we spotted the thief in the distance, running away. Stop! Thief! Chester shouted. Howie barked excitedly. He's got the fudge! What kind of lowlife would steal candy? He yipped out warnings to the neighborhood. Guard your gumdrops! Lock up the licorice! We were closing in on him. We had him. The chocolate thief had fallen. We had captured... Toby! What's the matter with you guys? He said, getting up. Are you nuts? He noticed the way I was staring and started to laugh. Just nuts about fudge, huh, Harold? Couldn't let it out of your sight, could you? Well, if you think Dad's fudge is something, just follow me. I could hardly believe my eyes. This was the nearest thing to heaven I'd ever seen. We were in such a rush to leave this morning, we forgot to take the 2 pans of fudge Dad made, Toby explained. Then when I ran home to get them, I forgot about the one made with white chocolate because it was up on the windowsill. It was all the way down the block before I remembered it, and I had to run to get it turned up. And I remembered and had to turn back. Toby gave me a little taste of the white fudge. It was okay, but if you want my expert opinion, if this isn't brown, it isn't chocolate. Gee, Toby went on, to think you were in the house all that time with all that chocolate and you never even touched it. That deserves a reward. Make mine catnip, Chester said. Each to his own taste, but I knew what Toby had in mind. Sweet dreams. I'm a really good reader.
That is really